What's shaking, guys? My name is Luke Dancy, and welcome to this week's episode of Unplugged with my special guest, Mr. Max Major.
What up?
He is the last magician standing on America's Got Talent right now. I am super stoked because I don't just know Max from this. You guys might know him from AGT, and a few of you might know him from some of his other stuff that he's done over the years, but he and I go back, like 20 years?
At least, yeah. I think you and I first met at a magic convention. I must have been maybe 14, 15. I think you were around 17, 18, something like that. And that was the start of a very long and wonderful journey together through the world of magic and conventions, and your early work with Chris Angel, all of my endeavors. I mean, so it's been really cool to watch everything you're doing and watching you grow. And we've worked on projects together in the past.
Yep.
But, aside from being connected in the magic world, just one of my favorite people in the world, so really happy to be on here with you today.
Well, thanks for joining us, man. I know that people are super excited because, and I know I'm excited too, you're on the world's biggest stage at the moment. You are on America's Got Talent, which is in a it's in a weird space this year, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But
an interesting season, that's for sure.
It is. That's a very good way to put it. It's different, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for us competing, and also for anybody watching, from home, it looks and feels a lot different, but I think it's actually been pretty cool how they've been able to adapt. There's not a whole lot of television being made at all right now. So the fact that they've found a way to continue, as they say, the show must go on, pretty inspiring to see how they're using technology, and it's kind of grown each round, right? Like my audition round was entirely virtual from my home. Then the next round with the judge cuts, I got a little more support from them performing over Zoom, but with some TV cameras on each end. And now, as you saw last night, the live rounds are starting with this sort of virtual stage they've built where they have hundreds of people, almost like this 360 screen with hundreds of sort of virtual audience members, and then everyone social distance, of course. So it's been evolving and it's changing every day. I'm learning more. And obviously the situation with COVID is changing every day. So they're kind of staying on top of that as well. But it's been a really interesting ride so far, and I just getting ready to go into the live show, so I'm sure it's going to be even more crazy.
Yeah, we'll all be rooting you on, man. That's for sure. You know that. And I did want to say one thing before we go any further, and I mentioned this to you before. I know he's on AGT right now, guys. Unfortunately, because of copyright strikes and all that, I can't show any of the footage from the show. I've got pictures, but I can't show footage or else they're going to pull down the feed. So I wanted to mention that. I want to, but Max, I can't. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy to find it online. If you go on AGT's YouTube channel, you can watch both my audition and my judge cuts, and you'll kind of see the evolution of my journey on AGT. The auditions were very interesting because I had no plans of being on the show. And if you were watching America's Got Talent this season, you'll have noticed how gradually COVID crept into the show, because the early rounds are pre-recorded. So in the beginning, you saw the typical full audience. And then you noticed later episodes, they were still in the theater with no audience. And then it got to a point around March where they weren't even able to be in the theater at all, even socially distanced. And so I guess at that point, they hadn't finished auditions. They needed a couple more acts. And they asked me to audition over Zoom for what I thought was a web series. I had no idea it would ever be anything more. It was on a web series they made called The Show Goes Online. And I got a call to come back for judge cuts, and I was shocked. I thought it was probably just going to be that one performance, and that was it. And judge cuts was an awesome opportunity because I had a little more time to plan, and I got a little more support. They had me on this beautiful rooftop, overlooking the Vegas Strip with TV cameras on both ends, and so it still was remote, but a little more production value. And so I'm pretty pumped because I think I'm one of two acts in the competition that actually came through from the online auditions. And so it's kind of wild that I've never actually got to meet the judges or even perform for them in person, and yet here I am in the quarterfinals. So kind of just crazy journey so far.
Yeah, and this journey, of course, goes much, much further back than what you're going through right now, obviously. And we're going to talk some about that because people see you in the now, but it took you a lot to get to where you are right now. And I've got a great clip to show everybody, and you can kind of talk them through it. This is kind of like your reel. This is one of the reels that you put together a couple years ago to kind of show the evolution and some of the journey that you've gone through over the years to get where you are. So while I show this, why don't you kind of talk about what the guys are seeing? And if you guys have questions too, feel free to drop them live right about now. All right, cool. So here you go. The reel. Oh, yeah. So why don't you talk about what they're seeing here as you are going through the motions of your shows, all the stuff you've done over the years?
Yeah, this is a video that plays before I walk on stage, back when there were stages, for corporate events, and it just kind of highlights some of the stuff I've done over the years. I've gotten really into hypnosis in the last about 8 years, but I've done hundreds of TV and radio appearances to kind of support my live shows. A lot of local news, a lot of sports radio, kind of you name it. Been on the Today Show. There I am with Al Roker, and kind of gets the crowd pumped up, before the show starts, before we go live. And then, of course, there's some social media content mixed in there. I've been shooting videos for the internet for at least the last 10 years, probably more than that. But I predominantly earn my living performing at corporate events and conferences. That's what I've spent the last about 15 years doing, kind of evolving that business. And really, it's been in the last 2 or 3 years that I've kind of made this shift towards a more public career. So doing theater shows, kind of a theater tour, working on getting my own show here on the Strip, putting out more internet content. But yeah, it's just, I guess in a way, just been a journey from the very early days doing, kids' birthday parties. I just did, traditional magic, and was doing birthday parties for 6 and 7-year-old kids in the neighborhood for $20. Until 20 years later, now performing on some of the biggest stages around the world, huge crowds, amazing clients. But I think all of that, even the very early shows for those small local crowds, all kind of formed the core of who I am as a performer. So I definitely encourage people to not look down on those types of events. It's a lot of times you think of like a kids show, because I cut my teeth doing kids' birthday parties for probably from age 14 to 23 or 24, and even a kid's birthday party is a chance for you to learn things as a magician, whether it's timing. I've had magicians say to me, like, oh, I don't want to do kids shows, but I never saw them as kids shows. Like, I always performed like real magic, like adult caliber magic. It just happened to be that there were kids in the audience, but the parents would watch, that kind of thing. So that's where you learn timing. That's where you learn to be spontaneous, to improv. You can, work on your magic, work on your chops, even in a setting like that. I was very lucky that I had a mentor early on. His name was Denny Haney. He ran a magic shop that I know that which was called the Denny and Lee Magic Studio. Yeah. It was sort of one of the last great brick and mortar shops before he passed away a couple of years ago. But Denny said to me, like really early in my career, to say yes to everything. And I think that was some of the best advice I ever received. And I actually hear a lot of people giving the opposite advice today, which is like, oh no, you shouldn't work for free. And if you work for free, you're worth nothing. And I think that couldn't be further from the truth. That early experience performing on as many stages as possible, even if that stage was somebody's living room, that was laid the groundwork and the foundation for the performer that I would become. So certainly wouldn't shy away from doing free shows or volunteering your time. Any stage is really an opportunity to get better at your craft.
Well said. First question coming in is a doozy. I hope you're ready for this.
I'm ready. Hit me. Anything you got.
Our friend over on YouTube, Yeet Bao, says, what would he do with the $1 million if he won? So if you won AGT, obviously you get the show, you get to do Vegas and all that. But with the money, what would you do with that? Do you have any plans?
It depends. Do they give it to me in a lump sum, or is it an annuity? I don't know. I don't actually know the terms of it. If it's an annual salary for 50 years, I don't know. I think then we're talking 30, 40 grand a year. So I don't know the mechanics of the payment. But let's assume that it is a $1 million lump sum. What would I do? I would use it to fund my dream, which is launching my own show on the Vegas Strip. And then I would probably give a significant portion of it to a Lyme disease charity, which is a cause that is very meaningful to me. So I would use it in 2 parts, one to benefit me by launching my own show and investing in myself, and then the other to fund research for Lyme disease.
Very cool. And I know you've been very public with the Lyme disease. You were on was it the Today Show, or which one was it?
Yeah. If people want to look that up, they're welcome to learn a little bit more about that. But long story short, I became very sick. I didn't know what was wrong with me, kind of mystery, kind of illness. If you look up Max Major Today Show, you can find it. Turned out it was Lyme disease, and as a result, I had to stop performing for about 2 years. I went from a full performance schedule, traveling all around the world, to all of a sudden I had to say no to all the gigs and all the calls, and became very quiet and kind of focused on myself for a couple of years. And I'm happy that I'm on the other side of it now and I'm back to performing. Really, only about 6 months before COVID, I had kind of gotten back on stage and back out there. Yeah, it's something that affects a lot of people, and a lot of people think it's just a simple thing. You get bitten by a tick and you move on with your life. But for me and for many, that wasn't the case. I gained a lot of insight in that journey as well. Had a lot of time to think about my career and how I got to where I am and what I wanted to do on the other side of this. And I kind of emerged from it with this new vision, this new lease on life. So you hear people say it all the time, but it really is one of the best things that ever happened to me, because without it, I wouldn't have pressed pause on my life and started to reflect. And I think that's something that sometimes your body will do to you. Like, if you don't stop, I'm going to stop you. And I think I had been going so hard for so long, my body said, okay, enough's enough. But really, really glad to be on the other side of that now. And this opportunity with America's Got Talent, kind of the icing on the cake, sort of emerging from a couple of years of not performing and now being back on stage, and then getting invited to perform on the biggest stage in the world at a moment when the world is shut down. I mean, the timing of it, I couldn't be more grateful for. It's really wild the way that life works sometimes.
You betcha, man. You betcha. We had a friend over on YouTube. He goes by Big Ed. I don't know if this is the Big Ed from 90 Day Fiance, but he says, it has his picture. Can you give my nephew Darren a shout out? Give Darren a little shout.
What up, though? How's it going, Darren?
There you go. All right.
Good.
Another question coming in here from Frankie Valley, my boy over in California. He wants to know, where does your creativity come from? That's a great question, because we're all different.
Okay. Yeah, so I had this limiting belief for a long time that was creativity was a talent that some people possessed and others did not. And I believed that I was in the category of not creative. And so I leaned a lot on collaboration and research, because I felt like that was a muscle that I didn't have, or a gift that I wasn't born with. And it actually was many, many, many conversations with Kaylin Morelli that started to create a shift in my mind, that creativity actually wasn't a talent. It wasn't something that you had to be born with or gifted with, that it was just a muscle. It was just a skill. And it turned out that I had spent my entire life working on the skill of performing, but I just hadn't spent much time working on creating or creativity. And I had a little retreat with Kaylin about 3 years ago. We spent a month at a beach town just creating. And I realized that it's kind of a process, and you sort of put the work in. And so where does my creativity come from? It comes from, one, a realization that we all are creative. We are creative beings. That is how we're wired. A realization that it is an exercise, not a gift or a talent, and repetition. And so I feel my creativity by taking in information from as many sources as possible. So I watch TED Talks, I watch YouTube videos, I watch TV shows, I watch movies, I read books outside of magic. I mean, inspiration comes from every aspect of life. You go to a coffee shop and you see a design with a table and you go, wow, that's beautiful. What is it that's beautiful and elegant about that? And how can I translate that to a rule for my stage set or for my own performances? And so I find that most of my creativity is external, and then it's the act of creating. And the other limiting belief I had was that creativity was an isolated pursuit, that it's something you performed in a bubble, in a vacuum, that there was this lone creative genius that locked themselves away and they emerged with these big ideas. But really, the more research I did, I found out that creativity was actually a result of a movement a lot of times. A lot of these great creative artists in the past were actually part of a scene or a culture. And so really embracing collaboration. We've had dozens of amazing creative conversations just brainstorming together, you and I, and likewise with Kaylin, and realizing that not being afraid to share my ideas, because when you keep them inside of your head, that's when they don't grow, and you have plans to do this thing or make this thing, and you're stuck, one, because you never actually put it to film or do it on stage, and so you can't get that idea out of the way to have a new idea come in. And then also, if you're afraid to talk about your ideas, you also don't make room for new ideas. And a lot of times it's not what the other person says back to you, but it's what you realize in communicating your idea to that person. So as you're explaining it to them, you may actually have an aha moment, or you may actually be able to articulate it better and realize a lot of times when I'm having a creative conversation, I'm just explaining what it is that I already want to do, and I'm talking it out, talking through it sort of out loud with that person that I trust. So I have a director who has a background as a magician. We have a lot of creative conversations. I turn to my magician friends, to brainstorm. And then also I throw ideas at my non-magician friends just to sort of get them out of my head because it's really about being able to articulate an idea. That's part of the creative process, about why you like something or why you believe in something. So even with AGT right now, I'm spending a lot of time communicating my thoughts for future rounds just to my girlfriend. And in the act of sort of sharing with her, either she reacts to something I say as a layman and gives me a new perspective, or the act of speaking it out loud, I kind of have those aha moments and those breakthroughs. And then one last thing about creativity, because this is a topic I'm super passionate about. Justin Flom, via Blake Voigt, gave me some really great advice. He said that not putting your ideas out prevents you from having new ideas. So sitting on ideas, whether they are for trick releases to the Magic community, or whether they are video ideas that you're going to film in the future, or whether they are tricks that you want to put into practice on your stage show, like hoarding ideas prevents you from having new ideas. And so putting them into practice makes room for new things. And so I don't know if it was Blake told Justin that or Justin told Blake that, but I heard it from Justin, and it was a big aha moment for me at Magic Live like 2 years ago. I said, holy shit, like hanging on to old ideas prevents you from having new ideas. And that was another big breakthrough for me. So those are my biggest tips on creativity. And again, those are just things that have unlocked something in me. You have to kind of find your own journey when it comes to creativity.
True that, yeah. And that's why it's interesting to hear different people share their what works for them, because everybody's different. So that was a great question, Frankie. Thank you for asking that one. One of the things that you've done during this, and we're going to jump into some footage of this, is you started to perform minimalism over social media, over things like Instagram and TikTok, and obviously now you're doing a virtual show as well. Is that how AGT found you, or did they find you because of something else? I know the answer to this already.
I had auditioned in the past, actually. So twice. I had auditioned when I was about 17. So I'm 36 now, so almost 20 years ago. And then I had auditioned again about 2 years ago. And that audition didn't go very far. I just went to an open call, performed for some casting folks, and then never heard back. But because of that audition last year, I was kind of on their radar. And so they invited me to apply for the online auditions. I had to submit a video. I was sort of on their radar. So it really does pay to audition, even if you don't make it on the show. It kind of put me on their radar. And then I had to audition again, for the producers this time around. But I think they're both scouting for people, but they're also finding people through the cattle calls. And so I've heard stories, without naming names, of folks who went to the open call and had more success than having gone to the producer call. And you can be invited to perform for them. And some people are just scouted off the internet and invited to perform at like a private casting call. And I've heard people have success in both directions. I've heard of people who went to the producer call, had no luck, and then went to the open call. So there's really no rules. I think it's important to be open. There's a world in which I might have said no in the past. I've gotten calls from TV shows, and for whatever reason, I talked myself out of it, because that's a thing that we just tend to do as human beings. We think of reasons not to do something, whether it's fear or, we don't call it fear, but some part of us comes up with a reason not to do something. So I think I was just in a different headspace this time around, where in the past I tended to overanalyze opportunities. I tended to think a little too hard about what the outcome would be when you can't possibly know, right? Like, we can't possibly know the outcome of any opportunity in life. And so to spend energy going over what if, it's almost futile, right? So why not just dive in and see what happens? Because lately I've realized that it's not like, a lot of people profess the power of saying no, saying no to things and focusing. But I've realized, like, it's really only the opportunities that I've said yes to in life that have made my life more interesting, that have forced me to grow, that have moved my life forward. And so I guess, with quarantine, with my illness in the past, I just found myself in a state of mind where I was just open to whatever opportunity life would bring. And so when they came calling, on top of the fact that all the stages in the world were closed, I didn't hesitate to say yes. And I think that's another just important thing that this quarantine's taught me.
Sure. And that's the other reason I want to show this footage, is because I didn't know if someone in the audience, because you travel all over the world doing shows just like this. This was for Cox Communications, I believe. I didn't know if someone in the audience saw you, because you've also made a lot of good contacts from performing. You've networked the hell out of that stuff, and you've met some really legit people by being out there performing. So just figured I would show a little live footage too, because this is one of my favorite pieces that you and I talked about with the balloon.
There's no doubt that networking plays a huge role in business as a performer. I think that oftentimes as artists, we tend to think that we will succeed on our own merit, like that being good is enough, right? Whether you are a magician or a mentalist or a painter or a musician or a DJ, whatever it is, you would like to think that that's enough to be good at your craft. But the truth is that there's the other piece of it, right? It's show business. The business part is really important too. And so learning about marketing yourself and finances and how to run a business and relationships just as important. I know many performers who are only okay at their craft that work a lot, and I know a lot of performers who are incredible, some of the best in the world, and they don't perform that often. And so obviously the missing link there is business, and networking's a big piece of that.
Absolutely, it is. And you've definitely worked for some very, very high-end clients over the years. What are some of the names, if you don't mind dropping a few of the names of the companies you work for, because it's pretty impressive actually at the end of the day.
Microsoft, Facebook, Google, all the big tech companies,
Awesome.
a lot of sort of high-end private parties, worked in used car lots. I mean, you name it at this point. I had some really interesting shows for the Department of Defense, where I came in and kind of demonstrated what I do as a mentalist. Those are really fun. Over the course of 20 years, it's been a progression, right? Like I had one show in the beginning where, when people rent cars, they're like known to not drive them like very well.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you would never do that,
Yeah.
but I've heard that when people rent cars, they treat them poorly. Well, after they rent the cars for a few years, Enterprise then to people that people like rent into them. And so I was like 16 years old, and they hired me to perform on the used car lot. So they had a magician performing on the used car lot, trying to sell people these like beat up cars, and I would like pop up from behind like a Volkswagen Jetta and be like, "Hey, want to see a card trick?" When people are there to buy a car. So I've had all kinds of weird gigs, and recently been blessed with performing on some huge stages and at really cool destinations around the world. So all part of the journey.
Speaking of all the performing, Daniel had a very interesting question. I don't think I've ever actually asked you this, but I kind of know why. Daniel wants to know, with so much magic in Vegas, why Vegas?
Okay, so two reasons. One is because my business is not linked to where I live. So I can live anywhere in the world because I travel to all of my gigs. And so first and foremost, I love Vegas. So it's a place I love to live. I love the weather. I love the heat. I love the community. So it's just where I wanted to live. So aside from any opportunity on the Strip, there are tons of magicians who live in Vegas just because it's a wonderful place to live. And it's just, you're surrounded by so much inspiration and art in the Strip. And I've had an infatuation with the Las Vegas Strip since I was 15 years old from a trip I went on with my grandparents. So that being said, would I love to have a show on the Strip? Absolutely. Is that something that I'm working very hard to fulfill? Yes. But at the same time, I moved here without any pressure on myself to find a show on the Strip. So I didn't come to Vegas to make it. I already have a career. I decided, since I could live anywhere in the world, that Vegas is where I'd like to live. Spent a lot of time in LA. I thought that was going to be the spot. But while I was in LA, I was visiting Vegas, and I just love it here. But yeah, definitely still pursuing a show on the Strip. But in the meantime, I earn my living performing at events around the world, and this just happens to be an awesome place to live if you're a magician.
Yeah, true that, man. True that. I had a really interesting question for you, because AGT now, the shows you normally do, obviously you just mentioned you travel a lot. Everything now is virtual, and I've got some footage of you doing some stuff online for some people. What's it been like doing things with AGT virtually so far? Why don't we kind of dig into that world a little bit, because it's
interesting. Like, you really do need a crowd as a performer. You feed off of that energy and that interaction. So for me, when there's not an audience, you have to start to realize that this is, okay, now you're making a TV show. Like, it's not a stage show, you're making a TV show. So now you have to make good TV. It's a different medium. Like, performing for camera is different than live, and performing on a stage for camera is different than both. Like, they're all different mediums. So I think you kind of have to, like, realize the context in which you're performing, and you have to adapt. So if you're sort of sitting and waiting for applause in a virtual show,
Mhm.
you're not going to get it, you're not going to hear it, and it's going to be awkward. But if you control the pace and the tempo, knowing that there's not going to be any noise to fill the downtime, I think it alleviates some of that pressure. Um, if you're someone who's trying to perform virtual shows, the best advice I have is to watch Twitch streamers, because Twitch is an established medium for entertainment without applause and without any interaction from the audience. Because a lot of the virtual shows that I've seen are awkward only because the performer is expecting the interaction to look and feel like what they're used to doing on stage. And so if you borrow some of the devices that work for people on Twitch, whether that's interacting through the chat, getting people to type things in the chat, or just simply not waiting for and expecting applause, it takes that just awkwardness out of it. And so I think it's like realizing this is not the same thing as performing on a stage for a normal crowd, realizing it is a new medium, and then trying to figure out, okay, what's the most entertaining thing I can do given this, but also just cutting out the waiting for applause or the awkward silence and that kind of stuff. So virtual is fun because it's like all this green pasture. Like everything has been done. When you try to be creative in the world of magic on a stage, really kind of everything's been done. When you look at AGT, all the different countries that it's in, 15 seasons now in the US, everything's kind of been done. But what's interesting about virtual is all of a sudden everything's new again, right? So like maybe we've seen a drawing duplication before, but I've never seen a drawing duplication where the person is in another state, like you're kind of watching on the screen right now.
Right.
So I think in a way, virtual is kind of making magic fresh again. Like you have to think about new methods, you have to think about new presentations, you have to think about ways to make things still believable and interesting, despite the fact that it's happening over the internet. So I'm super excited by virtual because of all this green pasture, right? It's like there's no rules. It's the Wild West again. And it's like being on AGT season 1 because no one's ever seen any of this before. And so I'm kind of, with my performances, hoping to lean into the virtual aspect of it and kind of use that and acknowledge that and own it. But I think that's, to me, the most exciting thing about what's going on in the world right now is we all have a chance to be amateurs again, which is really refreshing because like I had to learn about lighting and cameras aside from the things I had to learn about magic and what works and what doesn't work through the screen. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time for magic in spite of the fact that some people mock the idea of Zoom shows. I think it's actually really exciting what's going on right now. And I think that this is going to be a medium that exists after the pandemic is over. So my virtual show has been sold out for about 3 months straight now. I anticipate continuing to do this well after the pandemic is over. I mean, how cool is it that I get to, this is the room I do it from. I get to sit here in my house and entertain people all over the world. I don't have to fly. I just had my first show out in the real world because I don't know which part is the real world anymore. I had my first traditional show since the lockdown a week ago. And while I loved being on stage for a crowd again, it was amazing to have that interaction. I didn't miss the travel and the flights and like, you know, that 45-minute show was like a 2-day investment.
Right.
So there's some things that are really exciting about virtual. Yeah.
Where do you see the future of magic and minimalism going from here? Like, I know you just mentioned you will continue to do what you're doing now, but
I think that a new medium has arrived.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a temporary thing that is here just until the quarantine is over.
Right.
This is now it's accelerated technology, and so the same way that other industries are now allowing their employees to work from home, and they're going to continue to work from home after this is over. Like I think there will be arts and entertainment on the internet. Like if you look at Netflix, they had Bandersnatch, which was the like choose your own adventure interactive TV show, and that's kind of what like a great Zoom show or great virtual show is. It's like the quality of a live TV show, but where the audience actually has the ability to participate and control the outcome. And I don't see any reason that that wouldn't continue after this is over. I mean, as much as I like going out to a movie, I equally like staying in and watching a movie on Netflix and making a great dinner with my girlfriend. So I think it's going to be a staple of our culture. And I think some careers are being born out of it right now. And I think that certainly the Vegas Strip will reopen and the shows will be packed eventually. but that's going to be a little slower. I mean, live entertainment is going to be one of the last things to come back online, just because bringing a lot of people together in a single room will be like sort of the most risky last part of our economy to reopen. So in the meantime, whether or not I ever do a virtual show again, I've learned so many skills as a result. So just the pure experiment of creating a virtual show,
There you go.
you learn about lighting and cameras and editing and all of these great skills that you can use for the rest of your life. Like you and I always talk about how like every project we've ever had has somehow served the next chapter of our life.
True.
Like if you look in the rearview mirror, it always makes sense. We had a project called the Magic Session where both of us learned about live streaming, like before this was ever really a thing, and then you took that into your work with Murphy's and the show you're doing here, and I carried that into my online content. So yeah, I think that this is an incredible opportunity for people to learn new skills that they'll be able to use for the rest of their life.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Without giving away anything with the show coming up, because you are performing again, obviously you're still on AGT. Number one, can you tell us when that will be? Are you able to reveal that or not?
Yeah, so yesterday was the first of the 4 quarterfinal episodes.
Okay.
Each episode, 11 people compete. There are 44 people left.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
5 people will make it through each episode. So when this is over, there'll be 20 people left.
Okay.
So each Tuesday is a quarterfinal episode. I am not on next week. That's as much as I can tell you. I am either the 3rd or the 4th week, but everything's changing right now. But I'm prepared. If they called me tomorrow, I'd be ready. I'm not on next week. I'm either the 3rd or 4th episode of the quarterfinals, but I don't have a date. So,
Fort Master wanted to know over on our YouTube channel, did you get full creative liberty on AGT, or
yes.
or you do? Okay.
Yeah, without hesitation.
Cool.
They have very talented people on their staff who will give opinions.
Right.
I found, probably not supposed to go into this topic, but I found some producers to be more collaborative than others. However, everything is your decision. So they might say, you know, we probably wouldn't do that, but it's your act. And ultimately, you can do anything you want. So I think that there's this misconception that they like write the act for you, but all the acts, they really just respond to your ideas. All the acts are entirely in control of what they perform and how they perform. They support you, and they do everything they can to make your idea look awesome, whether that's like the graphics or the lighting or whatever it is. But ultimately, it's up to you. So they can't tell you what the right choice is for you. That's something you have to just go off of instinct. You know, your performing career, what makes sense in this environment. And I go back and forth about it every day. I have like 3 routines I'm planning right now for the quarterfinals. And one day I wake up and I think that A is the best choice, and another day I wake up and I think B is the best choice. And I tell my producer that, and she says, cool, okay, sounds good. So yeah, they really do give you complete creative control, which is awesome.
Yeah.
As an artist, might sound scary if you were just getting started, but most of the people on the show are seasoned performers, and that creative control is awesome.
Now, speaking of that, I know that you are a experienced performer. We both know that, but for people that are going into future seasons, of AGT, obviously you're still kind of in the beginning stages of the show. You're going into the quarterfinals. But so far, what you've learned, and I know you're going through this in a way no one else has too. Any advice?
What are you asking? Do I have advice for people who want to be on AGT?
Yeah.
My journey's just getting started.
Yeah.
So I would rather answer that question when it's over.
Okay.
Because right now I'm in the middle of it. I don't know what will bring. So far, it's been the most incredibly positive experience of my life. I can say that. Just getting to perform for Simon before he was injured on the judge cuts, even though it was over Zoom, it was an opportunity of a lifetime. I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. So I would say without hesitation, yes, you should do it. Do I have advice on how to navigate the show? No, because this season is unlike any other. Like, I don't know that any advice I would give would even be relevant next year, because I don't think there'll ever be another season of America's Got Talent like this. It is so unreal for the performers and for the producers and the staff and the talent. I mean, it's insane. Like, I know it's hard to tell when you watch the show, but the amount of effort that went into producing the live show last night in spite of all the restrictions that they are under. And the fact that they're able to do it in a way that keeps everyone safe, because they're like sticklers about safety. I have to go into quarantine for 10 days before I perform or get anywhere near the judges. I have to be tested daily. Everyone wears masks on set except for the performer during the performance. They're really strict about safety, so that's cool as well.
That's very good to hear, especially when things are moving so quickly. It's good to know that they're not letting that slip, because it shouldn't slip, especially right now.
Yeah.
I know you can't give too much advice on that, but I know something that you can give some advice on if you're up for it. Alejandro says, hello, Max. How to improve your stage presence over nervousness. Now, as someone that's been a performer pretty much your whole life, you have to have some advice when it comes to getting over being nervous.
I'll answer that. Alejandro, if you're still here, I'd love a little context. So if you can just type a message with how long you've been performing and what kind of stuff you do, that'd be great. But a generic answer to that question is repetitions. We talked about it in the beginning of this conversation, which is stage time. So there is no like antidote to nervousness other than repetition. And so really, it's about getting more reps in front of crowds, whether that's performing for a table of 10 people at your house when you have dinner guests, or whether that's performing on an actual literal stage. There's no substitute for flight time. And so volunteering for shows, if you can't get hired for shows, saying yes to every opportunity. The other antidote to nervousness is preparation. A lot of times, nerves come from the fact that you aren't prepared enough. And so nervousness could either be a result of just needing more experience, just more flight time, or it could be a result of not planning thoroughly, or a combination of the two. So just spending more time, double checking everything, making sure your props are set, having your checklist, going through your script ahead of time, knowing it front and back. A script gives you the ability to actually be more spontaneous. So planning what you're going to say in advance, it's counterintuitive, actually gives you the ability to be more spontaneous. Because if you have something to fall back on to say, then you can like step off the tightrope with a net, because you can make your jokes, you can be in the moment, and then you just step back on the path and continue to deliver your lines. And so being more tightly scripted allows you to have less nervousness, but also allows you to be more spontaneous during the show. So yeah, I'd say get out there, perform, say yes to everything, perform in every capacity you can, whether it's a neighbor's birthday party. Like I've had magicians who like are trying to start their careers and they ask me to send them work, and then I send them work, and then they say, oh, no, I don't want to do that show. Like, oh, no, I don't want to do that event, or no, I don't want to do that 8-year-old's birthday party or 12-year-old's birthday party, because a 12-year-old is an adult. Like the same things you would perform for a 25-year-old, you could perform for a 12-year-old. And so it's funny to me how sometimes egos get in the way of opportunities. And so yeah, performing every chance you get is the best antidote to that.
Cool. He did give a little bit more info. Alejandro says he's been a magician for 5 years, close-up guy, mainly card slice.
So get out of your comfort zone. If you've been doing mostly close-up, find an opportunity to do a stage performance. That's going to force you to level up everything you're doing, because now you have more attention on you than you do when you do a close-up show. And suddenly you'll have to strengthen that muscle even further. And so if you're a close-up magician, I say, even if you don't want to do stage shows the rest of your life, just do a stage show. Even if that means like a parlor show, like 25 people in a living room, I'd still consider that a stage show versus a close-up show. So yeah, try to get yourself in a position where you're performing stand-up magic, even if that means adapting your close-up routines, because it's just going to strengthen that muscle even further.
Well said. I know you talked about getting over being nervous rather. Danny Leclerc, he's kind of new to this stuff, and in general, he wants to know if you have any advice for beginner magicians just starting out. So anything to share?
Same advice. Perform as often as possible. Like I'm so lucky that I had that advice growing up, because I walked into a magic shop, and the first thing that the guy behind the counter did was help me put together a show for people. He's like, okay, you're going to like put together an act, and you're going to do this act for someone at some event somewhere. And that was the path I started on. Rather than just learning a trick to do for my friends, I started with the mindset of like, oh, I'm going to create a show. So try to create a show, like 20 minutes of stuff, even if you just string together all of the close-up routines if that's the best you can do for a structure of a show. Start with your second best trick and end with your best trick, and put the other shit in the middle. Like and do that as often as possible, even if it's for family gatherings or friends. The other thing is just to explore things outside of magic. So like let your other hobbies inform who you are as a performer. dabble in, if you're a close-up guy, learn a little bit of like stage magic, learn mentalism, learn hypnosis, like dabble in different areas of magic to find your voice. And mostly just have fun, like just have fun with it, because at the end of the day, that's the point, right? Like that's the entire reason that I've done this for the last 20 years of my life, has nothing to do with a career or money or fame or attention or significance or anything. It's just because I love it. Like this is the thing that I was supposed to do, and I'm lucky enough to do it every day. And so just making it about learning and growth and having fun. That way you won't be measuring yourself by what other people are doing, or about the progress you're making financially or with your business or anything else.
Well said. Very well said. And I hope you guys are enjoying this, get inside the head of a mentalist. See what I did there? I've actually got a few quick fire questions for you to help us get to know a little bit better, a little bit outside of magic here and the mentalism.
Okay.
Quick fire number one. Here we go. Favorite food. What is Max Major's favorite food?
Currently, sushi.
Hell to the yeah. I got to give you a round of applause on that one. Loving the sushi. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. All right. Number two. Max Major, what is your favorite movie?
The first thing that popped into my head was Silence of the Lambs.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Favorite movie? Silence of the Lambs. Okay. All right. Question number three. Quick fire. Here we go. Number three. If you weren't a magician / mentalist, you would be a...
teacher. Yeah, I've always felt like that's sort of my second calling in life, is being a teacher. I don't know what form that will take, as my career progresses or as I evolve as a human being. But yeah, I think a teacher in some capacity, if it had to be completely outside of magic, probably, like if I had to quit today and start the thing tomorrow, I'd probably be a college professor in business or entrepreneurship, because it would be really fun to meet someone at that point in their life where they're getting ready to take the leap into either going to get a job or starting their own business. And it'd be really cool to be that voice in someone's ear to maybe forge their own path versus going to work for someone else.
Very cool. All right. Question number four, quick fire. Here we go. Number four. When's the last time you did something for the first time?
A couple weeks ago, AGT, yeah.
Okay. Other than that,
that was the newest experience,
all right,
for sure. Performing virtually for AGT. The last time I did something for the first time, today. I've been helping my girlfriend set up a stream for Twitch for gaming,
cool.
And I'm like learning how to use a Windows PC and how to set up Streamlabs and do overlays and graphics and stuff. And so, I'm always up for. She's like keeps thanking me for helping, and I'm like, you don't have to. Like, I love learning this stuff. I love exploring, learning a new skill. So, yeah, today.
All right. That's all I got from the quick fire round. So you're safe. You're safe now. So congrats, you made it through. All right. People were asking me earlier about you've started to release some stuff on the Magic Market. Do you have plans to do any more of that, or is that something that you think you might step away from?
I don't know if step away from is the right word, because I've only ever released one effect, so I don't have like a career of releasing products.
That's fair.
I have nothing against releasing products. It's just never been my focus.
Yeah.
Like, we have limited time on this earth, and how each person uses it is up to them and what's the right choices for them. I don't have any plans to release any effects right now, but I don't have any plans to not release any more magic for the rest of my career. So it's just not my focus right now. Obviously, AGT has all of my energy and focus and attention. But aside from that, I've always focused on my performing career. I've always earned my living as a performer. That's just been where my attention has gone. I had a lot of fun releasing my first project, and I love seeing people perform something that I created. It's really cool to like not keep something to yourself, especially if you think it's a tool that so many people can use. So it was an interesting experiment. I'm really glad I did it. I have no current plans to release anything, but that doesn't mean I won't. All
right. Fair enough. Something I meant to ask you in the beginning that we can kind of come full circle on as we start to wrap things up. Dave Rothberg wanted to know, and I know the answer to this one, I'm pretty sure. Who was your initial influence to performing magic, especially the way that you do it? It's a great story if it's the one that I think you're going to tell.
What story do you think I'm going to tell?
I'm thinking it's the one about your dad and the hypnosis and all that stuff. 'Cause that's a
Yeah, yeah.
pretty good story.
So, my dad in the hypnosis was a big shift. I, like everybody else, had early just exposure to magic's a thing you stumble on as a kid, like every kid, and it speaks to some people. We know this. We all know this. My earliest influence was um, I was in high school. I was in my freshman year, ninth grade, and there was a senior, 12th grade, in the library. I didn't know him, but I was like walking through the library, and I looked down one of the rows of books, and this guy was against the back wall practicing billiard ball moves. So he like had it like practicing billiard balls, and I was like, "Are you doing magic?" It was like the first magician I ever met in person, and he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "I'm a magician too." And his name was Chad Rabinovitz. He's still my director today. So we met over 20 years ago, and we still work together. Another really close friend. But he took me to Denny and Lee Magic Studio. I'd never been to a magic shop. That was the most impactful single event in my magic life because I met Denny, who is just a legend. He started so many careers. So blessed to have met him. He gave me that advice about focusing on being a performer, saying yes to every gig. And then I was a magician. I was doing kids' birthday parties, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. Next big shift came when I was 18. My dad went to see a hypnotist, or hypnotherapist, so he could quit smoking. And he didn't tell us he was going to go. He just went and he saw this guy, and he came home, and he never smoked again. And I was fascinated by this because up until that point in my life, I thought hypnosis was fake. And here, all of a sudden, this stranger had like changed my dad's life with his words, and I was fascinated. I mean, I felt like this was a actual superpower, which it is, using your words to literally shape someone's behavior. And so I started learning hypnosis, which got me really interested in the mind and the actual magic of the mind, because we are magic. Like our brains, the way that we work, the way that we think, consciousness. What the heck is that? Like we are magic. And it really got me thinking about the mind. And that led me down the road towards being a mentalist and starting to study psychology and body language and marrying that with my background as a magician. And that's all a mentalist is. It's the marriage of the showmanship of a magician and a little bit of repackaging and presentation based on hopefully real life science, and of course hypnosis being an art in and of itself, separate from mentalism, that I think adds a lot to magic performances. Even if you're just learning hypnosis, it is an awesome tool for learning confidence and delivering lines and controlling attention. I would suggest any magician, whether you're a mentalist or not, learn the basics of hypnosis, because if anything, it'll just make your presentations a little more interesting. But you might find that you actually learn how to be more influential or deliver a convincing line or control an audience's attention. Hypnosis is all about controlling attention. I think it makes you a really powerful performer, even if you're not doing classic, comedy stage hypnosis.
Yep. And we got plenty of that, as you know, right here in Vegas.
I realize it's a really hard subject to learn, so
Yeah.
I'll give 2 time savers if you want to learn hypnosis.
Oh, cool. Okay.
The Manchurian Approach by Anthony Jacquin was the first thing that I saw or read that actually made sense, because Anthony Jacquin has a background as a magician. So it's hypnosis taught through the lens of a magician and how to incorporate it into magic performances so that you're not starting from scratch. Because we have a huge advantage as magicians, as we already have a skill that we can demonstrate and perform. So if the hypnosis doesn't work in the early days when we're learning it, we can fall back on magic. Where if you're learning hypnosis and you're not a magician, like what the heck do you do when it doesn't work? You're just like, you better be really funny. So Manchurian Approach was awesome because it's like hypnosis by a magician for magicians, and he's an expert. And then the other one was a book called Deeper and Deeper by Jonathan Chase. It's a paperback that you can get on Amazon used for a couple bucks. And Jonathan Chase, I believe, taught Anthony Jacquin, or at least influenced him and his father. So there's a lot of overlaps, because you'll see there's a lot of different techniques and worlds in hypnosis. And so you kind of have to find an approach that works for you. And I think as a magician, I suspect that you'll have the same experience I had, that Manchurian Approach by Anthony Jacquin. You'll actually get it for the first time. Like it'll make sense to you, where some of the other books are like, am I really going to line people up in chairs and like qualify them and send them back to their seat? Like I perform in restaurants or living rooms. Like That's not going to work for me. And so his approach was more the casual kind of street magic style of hypnosis, and it just really clicked for me. So those two resources hopefully will save you a lot of time if you want to dive in.
Have you been hypnotized, Max Major?
Yes and no. I went to a hypnotherapist.
Okay.
And to work on some like sleep stuff.
Yep.
And so I guess yes is the answer. I thought I wasn't hypnotized, and then she played me back the video of our session, and I didn't remember any of it. So clearly I was hypnotized.
Wow.
So I would say, no, I've never been hypnotized, but I've seen a video of me hypnotized. So I guess yes is the answer.
Wow, that's pretty rad, man. That's cool. All right. As we start to wrap things up here, I wanted you to also be able to tell people, I know you have a few different ways people can keep up with you, not only social media wise, but also when it comes to the voting and all that. So if you want to get people excited and on board,
hey, look,
go to it.
You know, the judges decided who moved forward this past round, but from this point forward, it's no longer up to the judges. Yep. So the voting actually it really matters. Like I'm the only magician left on this season. I would love to have your support if you're watching. The shows are every Tuesday, and then voting's open for 24 hours, and then the results are on Wednesday. So each Tuesday, those acts are competing against those acts. So, you know, during my week, I would love to have your vote. AGT app, AGT.com or NBC.com, AGT app on the iPhone and Android. But mostly, if you have any questions, you want to reach out to me. I try to respond to all my direct messages on Instagram. I'm really active on TikTok, but, you know, Trump's talking about ending that one, so we'll see. Instagram is probably the safest place for us to communicate right now. But yeah, I'm pretty much on every social media channel. If you just search Max Major, you'll find me. Did you want to, or have you maxed it out? Did you want to drop the number that people could actually get you, the one you? Oh yeah. So if you want to send a text during, okay, I can't put it on the screen right now.
I can do it for you. Huh?
Okay, if you send a text to 702-777-7205, that will automatically enroll you in updates and alerts about my AGT journey. Can you say it one more time? Yes, 702-707-7205. Just send any text to that number. You're not going to get spammed by AGT. This is on my cell phone. It comes directly to my phone. We can write each other back directly if you want to communicate. But also, you'll just get alerts about when I'm going to be on AGT next, when to vote, how to vote, that kind of stuff. And I don't use it to spam you. And genuinely, if you want to text back and forth with me, I reply to all the text there. It actually is my number. It really does come to my phone. But also, it allows me to broadcast updates about AGT and the voting and stuff. Sweet. There you go, guys. So I'll leave it up there for a couple more seconds for you guys to grab that. Especially when it comes to the voting, he'll make sure that you know when to vote, but also keep up with all. Yeah, even if you just want to say hi or ask a question about learning hypnosis or mentalism, book recommendations, whatever it is. I mean, we've been talking for over an hour. I could talk for another hour. Anybody that wants to reach out, I'm happy to just say hello or give advice or whatever it is. Sounds good. All right. Well, we've had a lot of people thanking you for doing this and coming on, and I can second that. Obviously, it's been fun to catch up with you, and you know, as I've seen repeatedly too in the chat, you know, good luck, you know, with the next round, and you may be the only magician left, but you got a whole group of people behind you supporting you, and the magic community. We will do our best to try to help you get as far as you can, man. Make it happen. We got you back. I'm planning on winning the whole thing, but I can't do that on my own. So I'm gonna put my best foot forward this next round. I'm gonna swing for the fences. It's live TV, so I'm going for it. And if I can pull this off, I hope I'll get your vote. There we go. Yeah, it's got Danny LeClaire. They're saying he's got your vote, or you've got his vote there. He's voting for you, so that's cool. Awesome. Yeah, man. I've got my votes. I get all of my votes. 10 here, 10 here, 10 here. I think you can vote 20. I don't know. Maxed out. Get it? Maxed. Oh, whatever. All right, man. Well, I'll let you go. I know you're super busy over there, so try not to work yourself too hard. I know that you're good at that, for real. But thank you for hanging in. And this is very surreal for me talking to you. One, like this with the technology, and two, just you being in the position that you're in. It's pretty rad. And who would have thought 20-something years ago that you'd be doing what you're doing now? So keep it up, dude. I don't know, the journey life takes us on. It's so wild when you like stop to pause and reflect. how all of the dots always connect when you're looking in reverse. And we spend so much time over analyzing those dots when we look forward. But when we look back, they always make perfect sense. And so that's the biggest lesson for me in the last couple of years, is just to surrender a little bit to the opportunities that life's offering. And the journey's a lot more fun that way, that's for sure.
Oh, and one last thing I want to ask you. I totally forgot about this. If people would like to see your virtual show, I know it's great for families and stuff like that. Are there tickets available? Yeah.
If the next show is September 5th, I had to put it on hold for AGT because the production schedule for the next couple weeks for the live TV. But the next one's September 5th. maxmajor.net if people want to get tickets or more info. That's also where all the new dates go up as well. But it's a super fun night. I mean, I'm biased, obviously. I created the show, but genuinely, it's a really, really fun hour that we'll spend together. And I think some of the things that we're doing with the technology as well is super innovative. So I think you'll really enjoy it if you're a magician, and your family will too.
Cool. And that's called Remote Control. So you guys look up.
Yeah, and if you're gonna come to the show, send me a message so I'll know you'll be there. I'll stick around, chat with you afterwards. Always try to do that. If any friendly faces are in the crowd, makes it a lot more fun for me.
Sweet. All right. Well, I'm glad I just thought of that, because I'm sure there's people out there that would love to be able to experience that. And again, it's great for the family. So if you guys have some family over, sit down and have Max Major mess with your minds for an hour. Sounds like a good time. Oh yeah. All right, sir. Well, I'm going to let you run. Kept you way too long. I went over the time I told you.
Never.
So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Round of applause coming in for you, and to all you guys out there as well for the great questions and all that. And don't forget to vote for him. Help him get as far as you can. As he mentioned, he can't do it alone. This is now up to us, all of us, to help him get as far as you can. So good luck out there, my friend.
Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate all you're doing for the magic community. I feel like you're filling a void that's been missing for a while, as we've lost brick and mortar shops, that community that you and I kind of grew up with.
Yeah.
I feel like you've sort of stepped in to fill a void in the magic industry, kind of creating and fostering community and positivity. I think that's really important too. So just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for everything you're doing to bring the magic community together in such a positive way. I definitely see it, and I know you've touched a lot of people over the years and inspired many careers as well. So appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're both doing what we love at the end of the day. So what more can we ask for,
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
All
Maybe
right.
a bowl of ice cream at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
That's
True.
All
right.
Hey, my light
friend.
went out. That's my cue.
That is definitely our cue to roll. So from Max Major and myself, we're going to roll out of here. So guys, take care, stay safe, and don't forget to vote for Max Major. See you guys.